Hi everyone! Today we're going to finish the rest of the alphabet of this book of goddesses by Kris Waldherr, who also did the illustrations. It's a beautifully illustrated book. We're going to start today in China with Quan Yin. You see her? Honored as the Holy Mother of Compassion and Mercy, Quan Yin is one of the most beloved goddesses of China. She is said to personify Karuna, the principle of boundless compassion and loving kindness. Considered the guardian angel of humans and the patroness of mothers and men at sea, she is often depicted sitting on a lotus, the flower of enlightenment, with a child next to her. Many people believe that even to say the goddess's name will bring protection and relief to those in need of her help. One story says that before she became a goddess, Quan Yin was the youngest of 3 daughters of a cruel father. When she saw her father force her sisters to marry unkind but wealthy husbands, Quan Yin asked to enter a temple instead. Her father agreed, but secretly ordered the temple residents to give Quan Yin the hardest chores to discourage her. Quan Yin had so much to do that after toiling all day, she had to work all night while the others slept. But the animals who lived near the temple saw Quan Yin's hardships and decided to help her. The tigers gathered wood for the fire, the snakes brought water, the birds collected vegetables from the garden, while the spirit of fire cooked food for everyone. News of these miracles spread from the lonely temple and reached her cruel father. In a fury, he set fire to the temple, but Quan Yin put out the fire with her hands alone without suffering one burn. Finally, her father gave orders for her to be killed for disobedience. After her death, Quan Yin was brought to heaven, where her purity of heart and mercy toward others transformed her into a goddess. But just as she was about to cross heaven's threshold, she heard a cry. It was someone suffering down on earth. Moved by pity, Quan Yin asked to be sent back to earth to help anyone in need. She vowed never to leave until the last human being was free from pain. Many believe that Quan Yin is still among us, looking after the many humans in need of her care. The next goddess is Lakshmi from India. Lakshmi is especially treasured in India as the goddess of good fortune, prosperity, and beauty. She is believed to represent all that is feminine, while her consort Vishnu, who is called the conqueror of darkness, represents all that is masculine. Many paintings from India show Lakshmi and Vishnu riding on the back of Garuda the eagle, the giant king of birds, as they fly across the land. According to Indian mythology, Lakshmi was created from the ocean of milk. Vishnu churned the ocean of milk for Indra, king of the gods, because he wanted to make a magic potion that would bestow eternal life. As he churned the ocean, many wonderful things came out of it. A wish-giving cow and a tree, an elephant, a handsome white horse, and a matchless jewel. Most precious of all was the beautiful goddess Lakshmi. Lakshmi rose out of the ocean of milk standing on a lotus flower, with a lotus blossom in her hand and a crown of lotuses on her brow. The goddess immediately announced that her place was next to Vishnu's heart. So Lakshmi and Vishnu were married and soon had a son whom they named Kama. Kama came to be considered the god of romantic love. In many paintings, he looks similar to the cupids on Valentine cards, which we give to show our love to another person. As the goddess of good fortune, Lakshmi is said to be attracted to sparkling jewels, which are like the riches she bestows on her worshippers. Some people believe that she lives in the sky with the most beautiful jewels of all, the stars. Once a year, on the night of the new moon in November, Indian women clean their homes and hang tiny lanterns outside that look like stars themselves. They hope that these lanterns will attract the goddess to their homes and that she will bless them with good fortune and prosperity for the coming year. The next goddess is Maya from Greece. When we look into the night sky, we can recognize the 7 stars which make up the constellation called the Pleiades. Pleiades, P-L-E-I-A-D-E-S. The ancient Greeks thought that these stars were once the 7 daughters of Atlas, and the goddess Maya was the youngest of them. When he took part in a revolt led by the giants against the gods of Olympus, Atlas was made to bear the world on his shoulders as punishment. Maya and her sisters mourned their father's humiliation so much that the gods turned them into doves to spare them any more pain. Then they flew to the highest heaven and became brightly shining stars, the 7 stars of this constellation. Maya is mainly remembered today as the goddess of spring and rebirth. Like the month of May that bears her name, Maya means the maker, and every spring she makes the lush green grass and the fragrant flowers grow again. She is also praised as the grandmother of magic because her son, the god Hermes, was the first to discover the mysterious art. Soon after Maya gave birth to Hermes, she knew her son was a genius. While still a crawling baby, he created the first lyre by stretching strings across a tortoise shell, and the first panpipe from marsh reeds. Besides being the first magician, Hermes is credited with the invention of medicine, astrology, and letters. Part of his duties as messenger to the gods and goddesses was the responsibility of bringing the souls of the dead to the unworld. It is interesting to see how through this function Maya's son became the god of death, which contrasts to Maya's role as the bringer of life each spring. People still celebrate Maya every year on the 1st of May, which is called May Day, in honor of the goddess. Men and women rejoice over the rebirth of spring by dancing circles around the maypole and by wearing vibrant green, the color of the earth itself. The next goddess is Nahiloro Kidul from Java. The royal family of the island of Java believed that their divine right to rule was bestowed on them by Nahiloro Kidul, the mermaid goddess of the South Seas. A popular story says that this goddess married the king of Java in the 16th century. Before returning to the sea, she taught the king how to gain the power of the spirits so that he could rule Java wisely. Since then, all the rulers of Java have considered Nahiloro Kidul their divine ancestress. She is believed to have been the mortal daughter of a king of Java in ancient times. Upon her mother's death, her father remarried unwisely, and the princess's new stepmother was wildly jealous of her, and with the aid of an evil wizard poisoned her stepdaughter's bathwater so that her skin erupted in painful sores. The poor princess was banished to the forests. She wandered there for a long time until she came to the south shore of the island. While she rested on the ocean's edge, an ethereal voice called to her from behind the moonlit waves. "Come here and rest," the voice said. "Here you shall be a mighty queen, regain your beauty, and rule the green ocean forever." Immediately the princess threw herself into the sea, where she was transformed into the radiant goddess Nahiloro Kidul, and Javanese still honor her today. As a seductive mermaid queen, her powers reflect the mysterious hidden forces of the ocean. Local people know better than to swim in the waters on the south shore, where the goddess is said to reside. It is believed that she looks out for mortals to serve her in her underrealm sea, and is especially enticed by young men wearing green bathing trunks. To appease the goddess, people leave offerings of coconuts, clothes, and fingernail clippings at the ocean's edge, all of which are eagerly accepted by the powerful sea. Now we are traveling to Nigeria in Africa to learn about Oya. The Yoruba people of Nigeria believe the Niger River is ruled by a powerful goddess named Oya. When Oya is happy, the river flows. smoothly, bringing clear water to nurture the many families who depend on it. But when she is angry, then the river may overflow or run dry. Oya also sends storm winds to warn the guilty of the approach of her husband Shango, the thunder god, from his copper palace in the sky. The winds Oya creates are strong enough to tear the roofs off houses and uproot huge trees. One story tells that Oya was originally an antelope and was about to take off her skin as you or I would take off a coat. Then, looking like any woman, she would go to the marketplace to spend time among humans. It was there that the thunder god Shango first saw Oya and lost his heart to her. He hid her antelope skin and married her. It did not take long for wise Oya to find out where her husband put her precious antelope skin. But Shango begged her forgiveness and in apology offered akara, special bean cakes, to her. Akara were Oya's favorite food, so she was delighted. She agreed to stay with Shango and help him fight his battles against those who vexed him. Since words are made of the wind that we make when we breathe, and since Oya is praised for her persuasive, charming speech, Yoruba women often ask the goddess for her help, choosing the right words to ease conflicts and gain power. It is because of this that Oya is considered the patroness of female leadership. To please Oya, many Yoruba wear strings of long maroon beads around their necks. They keep altars in the corners of their homes displaying objects sacred to her, like the buffalo or bush cow horns, and a copper crown symbolizing the copper palace where she lives with Shango, and the bean cakes she loves. Sometimes they place statues of her wearing a headdress decorated with copper nails that looks like Shango's thunder axe. Oya is still widely worshipped among the Yoruba. The next goddess is from Hawaii, and her name is Pele. In the Hawaiian Islands, where there are many volcanoes, people believe in a tempestuous goddess of fire called Pele. Pele rules over all kinds of fire, but especially over the lava that flows from erupting volcanoes. The finest strands of molten lava are called Pele's hair. Everyday life would be harsh without fire to cook food or to heat homes in winter, but humans also live in fear of fires devastating their homes and forests. Like fire itself, Pele has the power to destroy as well as to create. If she is pleased by the islanders' prayers, she will generously check the flow of hot lava toward a village. But if she is angered, then she will turn people and animals to stone. Hawaiians also believe that earthquakes are caused by an angry stomp of Pele's foot. She was created by the heat of the earth like lava from a volcano. Surprisingly, her first home was in the sea with her sister, a sea goddess. But she grew angry with Pele and drove her away. Pele wandered across the sea for a time, and then she came to Hawaii. There she is thought to have settled in Mount Kauai, one of the most active volcanoes in the world. Hawaiians believe that to amuse herself, Pele sometimes visits them. With a back as straight as a cliff and breasts as round as the moon, she is described by those who have seen her as the most beautiful woman on earth. Her royal bearing and great charm make her irresistible. One story from long ago tells how Prince Lohai, the chief of the island Kauai, fell deeply in love with Pele during one of her visits. Unaware that the object of his love was the fire goddess, the prince insisted that they marry immediately. Since Pele loved him also, she agreed, but 3 days after the wedding, Pele left her new husband to arrange her affairs, promising to return as quickly as she could. But she took too long. Prince Lohaiu, thinking she had abandoned him, died of a broken heart. His encounter with the goddess had been as destructive as the volcano's fire. The next goddess is from Sumeria, and they call her the Queen of Heaven. Anana, the great goddess of the Bronze Age, was honored with the title Queen of Heaven. She was said to be clothed with the stars and to wear the rainbow as her necklace, while the zodiac wrapped itself round her waist as a belt, and the crescent moon crowned her head. Anana is often depicted standing regally upon two winged lions, showing her divinity. In Sumeria, where she was worshipped 5,000 years ago, her temple was called Anana, which means house of heaven. Anana was created with power over many aspects of Sumerian life. Besides ruling over the stars and planets in heaven, she was also goddess of the rain clouds, which gave the water needed for grains to grow. Because they believed that all moisture was caused by the moon, the Sumerians also thought that she was responsible for the cool lunar rays of light that carried precious dew to the earth during the night. Since Sumeria, which is today Iraq, is a land scorched by sun, it is understandable how valuable a goddess who created water would be. Inanna's name translates as Queen Moon. The story of her descent to the land of the dead explains her connection with the moon. Her older sister was the goddess of the dead and ruled over Kunajia, the land without return below the sweet waters of the earth. One day, Queen of Heaven, Inanna, descended to the land of the dead to visit her sister. But her sister killed her visitor and hung her corpse upon a stake. While Inanna was gone, the moon disappeared from the night sky and all things ceased to grow upon the earth. After 3 days, the water god obtained access to her corpse. He sprinkled it with water of life, resurrecting her, and she returned to the upper world, bringing the moon and all of life back with her. From this story, we can see how her trip to and from the land of the dead describes the waning and waxing of the moon. Our next goddess is from Great Britain, and her name is Rhiannon. In Berkshire, England, there is a huge impression of a horse carved in the chalk on the side of a hill. This enormous white carving, dating from the 1st century BC, shows the immense importance of the horse to the people of that time. Horses were used for traveling, plowing fields, and transporting heavy loads, so it is not surprising that the British horse goddess Rhiannon was said to appear to her followers riding an unearthly white horse, like the horse carved in the side of the hill. Dressed in royal robes of gold, Rhiannon is always accompanied by 3 birds from the happy otherworld, where gods and goddesses live. The magical song of these birds could lull the living to death, restore the dead to life, and heal all sadness and pain. Rhiannon's name is derived from Rigantona, which means Great Queen Goddess. In an earlier period, she was known as Epona. Many statues have been found of her as Epona, and most of them show her with a mare on one side and a bundle of grain on the other, showing her connection to the harvest. Other statues depict a mare, foal, and the goddess. Rhiannon is an important character in the Mabinogion, a collection of Welsh myths from the 13th century. One of these myths tells the story of how Pele, the prince of Dyfed, fell in love with the goddess after spying her on her white horse. Pele guessed from her ethereal quality that she was of an enchanted origin, but he was undaunted. Determined to catch up with her, he rode his horse as fast as he could, but no matter how fast he rode or how slowly Rhiannon appeared to ride, he was unable to reach her. This went on for many days. Finally, the humbled prince called to the goddess to wait for him, which she did. When he asked, "Why didn't you stop earlier?" she simply replied, "Why didn't you ask me?" And after this, the couple lived happily together for many years. We are going back to India now to talk about the goddess Saraswathi. Because she is the goddess of all knowledge, Saraswathi is held in special esteem by students, writers, and musicians. She is credited in India with the creation of the fruits of civilization, the first alphabet, the arts, mathematics, music, and magic. Extraordinarily beautiful and graceful, she is easily recognized by her dazzling skin and brilliant clothing. Her color and brightness is said to represent the powerful, pure light of education, which destroys the darkness of ignorance. One myth tells how Saraswathi and her consort Brahma were born from the golden egg which came from the sea. Then they created all of the knowledge and all of the creatures in the world. Many also consider Saraswati the mother of all life, since it was her divine energy, united with the awareness of Brahma, which brought everything into being. Saraswati is also a river goddess, and her name translates as the flowing one. In India, the pure flowing waters of river represent the purifying and nurturing waters of life, and are still regarded as sacred. She shares her name with a river that flows down from the Himalayan mountains to join the Ganges. Many pictures of Saraswati show her seated upon a lotus blossom throne, accompanied by a white swan. The swan is believed to be able to separate milk from water in the same bowl, an act which shows the ability to discriminate between actions and offerings that are good and wise and those that are insincere. The goddess is often depicted with 4 arms, showing that her power extends in all directions. In one of her hands she holds a book, and in the other a strand of beads. The book represents learning, while the beads indicate spiritual knowledge. With her other hands she holds and plays the veena, an Indian lute representing the art of music. We're going now to Tibet, and this is the goddess Tara. The most important deity for the Tibetan Buddhists is the compassionate mother, goddess Tara. Tibetans believe that Tara has the power to heal all sorrows and grant all wishes. The name Tara translates as she who causes one to cross, which means that the goddess will help her devotees to cross safely to the other side of a troublesome situation. Tibetan Buddhists approach life as a process which enables them to gain inner wisdom and knowledge. They believe this inner wisdom leads to true happiness and peace, which is better than any riches the world can offer. Such an enlightened person is called a Buddha or Blessed One. The goddess Tara was once a woman who yearned to gain this enlightenment and became the first female Buddha. One story says that she worked and prayed for the welfare of humans everywhere for over 10 million years before she reached her goal. Then she was transformed into a goddess whose only wish was to ease the world's pain. Tara is honored as the protectress against the many fears that block people from living in happiness and harmony. Some of her roles reveal the kind of fears that concern the people of old Tibet. For example, Tara is said to protect her followers from the fear of elephants and poisonous snakes, and an old legend tells how she saved a wood gatherer from a hungry lioness. When the wood gatherer called for help, Tara appeared to him dressed in forest leaves and pulled him from the jaws of the lioness. Then she returned the man safely to the marketplace. But other fears from which Tara offers protection are those that everyone can identify with. Who has never felt the fear of poverty, of unfair imprisonment, or theft? Tara will not only protect her followers, but she will also save all those who cry her name at the moment of their suffering. Tara is Tibet's most popular deity and is still widely worshipped. Now, this is another goddess from Japan, which there was a goddess from Japan in our first half of this alphabet. And this is Kimochi. The Japanese once believed that all the food of the earth was created by Kimochi, a gentle and kind goddess. No one was ever short of food because of Kimochi's generosity. The Japanese also believed that, instead of being separated by night and day, the sun and the moon lived peacefully together in a palace in the heavens. This changed, however, because of a task which was set to the moon god by the sun goddess Amaterasu. One day, Amaterasu commanded her brother, the moon god, Tsukuyomi, to go down to Earth to visit Ukimochi and make certain that the food goddess was performing her duties correctly. Ukimochi was so excited and honored by the prospect of Tsukuyomi's visit that she prepared a grand feast for him. First she turned her head to the land, and rice rushed forth from her mouth. Then she turned to the sea, and all kinds of fish spilled onto the banquet table, deliciously prepared for the moon god. Finally, Ukimochi turned toward the high mountains. Within moments, all sorts of meats emerged from her mouth and arranged themselves in as rich a feast as ever there was. But Tsukuyomi was not impressed by Ukimochi's generous offering of food from her body. Tsukuyomi was disgusted. He drew his sword and stabbed her. Even in death, Ukimochi continued to create food. As she lay dying, her head turned into cows and horses who ran off to populate the earth. Grain spouted from her forehead, and its seed blew into the fields and grew. Then rice plants sprouted from the goddess's belly. Her inky eyebrows became silkworms whose threads were woven into rainbow-colored silks to clothe the gods and goddesses. And so, Ukimochi's body lived on in many forms, providing nourishment for everyone. When Amaterasu, the sun goddess, learned that her brother had killed the gentle food goddess, her fury was without limits. From that time on, the moon god has avoided being in the same palace when the sun is awake, and that is why the sun is out during the day, and the moon is out only at night. This is one of our Italian goddesses, and her name is Venus. Venus was the name the ancient Romans gave to the goddess of love. Created from the union of sea and sky, Venus was born of sea foam and water and was described as the star of the sea. As the goddess of love, she was the queen of pleasure. She was also honored as the mother of the Roman people. Venus was married to Vulcan, the lame god of the forge. She was also closely associated with Mars, the god of war, but it was with a mortal man, Anchises, that she gave birth to Aeneas. Aeneas was a Trojan prince who escaped after the fall of Troy and sailed to Italy, where he became the founder of Rome. During his many adventures, which were recorded in the Aeneid by the poet Virgil, Aeneas was protected by enchanted armor that his mother persuaded Vulcan to make for him. Venus is the goddess who inspires people to love each other and to have children, ensuring that the human race continues to grow. She is also a nature goddess associated with the arrival of spring. When Venus approaches, winds die away, clouds scatter, and flowers spring from the ground. The sea smiles, and brightness fills the sky. At her entrance, all living creatures in sea and sky are struck to the heart by her power and happily follow wherever she leads. Venus is the bringer of joy to gods and humans as well as to the plant world. For hundreds of years, artists and poets have turned to her for inspiration. The Italian artist Botticelli painted a magnificent picture called The Birth of Venus, and the playwright and poet William Shakespeare also sang her praises. Shrines have been built to Venus in many parts of the Mediterranean. The city of Venice, in North Italy, is named after her, and each year the people of Venice celebrate the marriage of their city to the goddess by throwing a golden wedding ring into the sea. This ceremony ensures that Venus will protect the city and continue to help its people to prosper. In Australia, there's a goddess, Wawalak. Before Europeans colonized Australia, over 400 nomadic tribes inhabited the continent. Today their numbers are much reduced, but these Aboriginal peoples still believe that the world was created in a mythic past called the Dreamtime. During the Dreamtime, the gods and goddesses who were sleeping beneath the ground awoke and wandered over the earth. As they traveled, they created the landscape and all living creatures and taught them the art of survival. Once the world was completed, these divine ancestors went back to sleep in their underground abode. Of all the Aboriginal gods and goddesses, one of the most renowned is Ulungur, the great rainbow serpent. Ulungur is called the Great Mother and Father and is responsible for the bringing of rain. The myth of Wawalak, two sister goddesses of North Australia, illustrates the power of these fertility goddesses against the great rainbow serpent. During the dream time, the Wawalak traveled from the south to the north with their two newborn babies and set up camp next to the waterhole of the great rainbow serpent. Unaware that the waterhole was sacred, the goddesses accidentally polluted the waters. The pool flooded and the rains poured down in an angry response. To appease the heavens and protect their babies, the Wawalak sang and sang, but they could not sing forever. Finally, Ulungur came out of the waterhole and swallowed the Wawalak in a large gulp, babies and all. Later, he felt ashamed when he thought about what he had done to these goddesses. So he opened his great mouth, and out they came and lived once more. Since then, the place where the Wawalak and their babies were reborn from the great rainbow serpent has been a sacred spot for religious ceremonies. As both goddesses and mothers, the Wawalak symbolize the unending force of life in all women, and a force that can never be stilled. This goddess is Xochiquetzal from Mexico. The Aztecs, a people who ruled over a vast empire in Mexico during the Middle Ages, believed in a flower goddess who they called Xochiquetzal. The goddess's sacred flower was the yellow marigold. Her name meant feather flower, probably referring to the marigold's many fine feathery petals. One of the merriest of the Aztec deities, she was also the goddess of dance, music, crafts, and love. Appropriately, her twin brother, Pele, was honored as the god of pleasure. Xochiquetzal was said to live on top of a mountain above the 9 heavens. This flowery garden paradise was populated by merry dwarves, dancing maidens, and musicians. The Aztec believed that anyone who was faithful to the goddess would spend eternity in her paradise when their earthly life has ended. She was married to the rain god Tlaloc, and the moisture that Tlaloc created in the skies helped her flowers to grow. Though many men fell in love with the goddess because of her beauty and her happy nature, she remained loyal to her husband for many years. But finally, the persistent and mischievous god Tezcatlipoca won her away from Tlaloc. According to Aztec mythology, he loved her so much that he sang of the goddess, "She seems to me a very queen, she is so lovely and so gay." The Aztec also told a myth about a flood which destroyed all creatures, except for the goddess and one mortal man. To repopulate the earth, they had many children, but all of them were born voiceless. But Xochiquetzal willed a dove to descend from the tree of heaven. The dove gave each child a voice and a language, and then the children were scattered across the globe. The Aztecs believed that all of the different races and languages in the world sprang from these children, and with this story they honor this goddess as the mother of the world. In Cuba, there's a goddess named Yamana, and sometimes she is called Yamaya, the Santerian goddess of the ocean, and she is believed to be the daughter of the earth goddess and the sister and wife of the god Aganju. As the divine mother of the 14 gods and goddesses who make up the sacred pantheon, she occupies an exalted position in the Santeria religion. Santeria developed from the Yoruba religion practiced by enslaved Africans who were brought to Cuba to work on the sugarcane plantations during the 19th century. Because these unfortunate people were not allowed to worship as they wished, They mingled the symbolism and traditions of their native gods and goddesses with that of the saints from the widely followed and accepted Roman Catholic teachings. The Santeria religion spread from Cuba, where it originated, through the Caribbean and out to North and South America, and is still widely practiced today. Since Yamana is the beautiful and immensely powerful goddess of the waters, many people who follow her call her Holy Sea Queen. She is said to own all of the riches of the oceans: seashells, pearls, oysters, coral reefs, and every sea creature. As the goddess of water, she is also called on to bring rain. Yamana is also revered as the great mother of all, as the sea is like the waters of the womb from which all humans are born. As the goddess of motherhood, she is associated with Christianity's Virgin Mary. Women who wish for children will also ask for her help. At some time in their lives, each practitioner of Santeria takes one of the gods or goddesses to be their spiritual mother or father and tries to develop a special relationship with him or her. Those who are the children of Yamana try to please the goddess in many ways. Since 7 is the number sacred to her, they wear 7 silver bracelets on their arms. They also burn candles as blue as the sea she rules and wear beautiful blue and crystal beads strung into necklaces in her honor. Our final goddess in this alphabet is from Russia, and her name is Zora. Here she is. In myths all over the world, there have always been trinities of goddesses who are believed to influence and bear responsibility for the well-being of the earth. Usually, these 3 goddesses also symbolize the 3 ages of women, these being maiden, mother, and old woman, or crone. The ancient Greeks believed in 3 goddesses they called the Fates. These mysterious beings were said to write the world's future, which mere humans had to wait to see unfold. In Scandinavian mythology, the 3 Norns wove the thread of life, which, if it broke, would bring the end of the world. The Zora, with whom we end this book of goddesses, are such a trio. In Russian mythology, the 3 Zora represent and are named after different times of day. The first goddess is called Dawn, the second Twilight, and the third Midnight. The Zora are attendants of the sun god who rides through the sky on his horse every day, bringing light and warmth to the earth. The sun god is said to return each evening to a magical isle ruled by the Zora, and when he is ready to leave the isle at daybreak, Dawn opens the gates of heaven to let him out. Since the sun god sets out in the morning and gradually grows older during the day, by nightfall, he is an old man when he returns to the Zora's magical island, where twilight closes the gates behind him. Then he is born again as a new baby during the night, ready to repeat the cycle. As well as attending to the sun god, without whose light all living things would perish, the Zora are believed to be the guardians of the universe. As such, these goddesses are responsible for guarding a terrible doomsday hound, which is chained to the constellation of the Little Bear. According to Russian mythology, the end of the world would be at hand if ever the chain were to break. They are the Zora. And let me tell you a little about this author and illustrator. Kris Waldherr has illustrated and written several well-received picture books. Her most recent, Persephone and the Pomegranate, was praised by the New York Times Book Review for its quality of myth and magic, and by Jean Shenandoah Bolin, author of Goddesses in Every Woman, as a beautifully done retelling of the major mother-daughter myth. Kris Waldherr's strong interest in mythology and folklore, especially women's myths, led to the extensive research which became the Book of Goddesses. Kris Waldherr was born in New York and received her Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from the School of Visual Arts in New York City. She lived in Devon, England, while working on the paintings of her first book, Rapunzel, retold by Amy Ehrlich. Rapunzel was described by Publishers Weekly as a visually resonant work, rich in enchantment and romance. Kris waldherr now lives in New York. This was published in 1995. Her artwork has been shown throughout the United States and Great Britain. Thank you for listening.